Welcome to Anita Vita Rise. All right, everybody, welcome. It's Anita Vita Rise. Anita Vita Rise, yeah. Anita Vita Rise, yeah. Anita Vita Rise, yeah. Who can make it better? Anita Vita Rise. In all types of weather, Anita Vita Rise. Get you back together, Anita Vita Rise. Go send her a letter, Anita Vita Rise. Anita Vita Rise. Anita Vita Rise, yeah. Anita Vita Rise, yeah, yeah. Anita Vita Rise.
Welcome to Rise with Anita Vita. I am your host, Anita Vita, master medical qigong teacher and healer. I am so grateful and thankful you're here with me today. As you know, this show aims to amplify women's voices, have them share their stories so that they become a ripple effect of healing in this world. I am so excited to have another amazing beautiful guest for you this evening. She's a lifestyle entrepreneur, certified transformational coach, mindset motivator, and the host of her amazing podcast called Born Unbreakable. Please help me welcome the lovely, amazing Desiree Maya to the show, everyone.
Hey!
What's up?
What's going on?
Food. No.
I know,
That's
right?
the last thing we were just talking about.
Seriously. Show me the buffet. No.
Yeah. I'm so happy you're here with me and now my audience today. I swear it was just a few days ago that we connected, or not so long ago.
I know.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your world.
Oh my gosh. It's a very dynamic. That's probably the first word that I think of. So I do a variety of things, but one of the connection points that Anita and I had was healthcare. I thought it was amazing meeting you and hearing about your journey in healthcare. And mine has been one that has been for the last 17 years. Well, actually, it goes back a little bit further because when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a registered clinical dietitian. So that was actually the path that I was going down. So I volunteered in the medical library. I shadowed the dietitian and gave out menus to patients and, learned all of that stuff. And of course, I then went to college and then totally didn't end up doing that. I majored in political science, but I minored in healthcare and social issues. So that's when I went into healthcare consulting after I graduated. And so for the past 17 years in healthcare, I've been doing everything from length of stay management, strategy and operations. And this is in the consulting space. So a lot of different hospitals across the country. And now I focus on executive coaching. So coaching different leaders in the healthcare space, but I also have a private coaching practice. So I coach entrepreneurs and individuals as well. And then I do diversity, equity, and inclusion work to expand the goals in that space that organizations have. And I focus a lot on change management, and helping people through change because it's difficult. People like to stay comfortable and not have to change. So it's a world that it's never boring. I coach and consult on different challenges every day. Even after almost 2 decades, it's still incredibly fulfilling. And as you mentioned in the introduction, which was so kind, thank you, I also host a podcast too. So it's called Born Unbreakable. You could see it behind me. And I release 2 episodes a week and interview amazing people like when I've had you on the show. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything, but I would say that the thread that holds all of those things together is self-development. I
Mm.
have been passionate about that space since I was a kid. I knew that whatever I did was going to touch that in terms of, you know, keeping one of my core values alive, which is intellectual curiosity and just always being a student of life. And then also that passion of just enriching the lives of other people. So somehow, some way I knew I was going to do it. And then I ended up taking the path of consulting and coaching.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that that was something you've always wanted to do as a child and to really help and support and transform lives. And I'd love to know how that ties in the personal development space around the topic of radical self-love.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, self-love, that is just oh, it's huge. So, one of the things that as a kid, I feel like I was very fortunate to grow up in a household that really had a lot of encouragement, so I do think that the environment that you're in influences you, how you see the world, how you see yourself, and if you feel discouraged or empowered or, encouraged. Um, I had an immigrant father from the Philippines, and he met my mom when he was in the military in Hawaii. And I grew up in a Catholic household, where we prayed and, did everything together as a family. Academics was incredibly important, and so I was fortunate to just have a lot of love, and a lot of support. But my dad passed away when I was 9, so that was such a traumatic experience because obviously at that time you don't really understand everything that is going on. He had a stroke, and that was
Mm.
actually one of the reasons I knew I wanted to touch healthcare in some way to improve the experience, knowing that was experiencing healthcare, more intimately when I had to spend so much time in the hospital of my father being there, and I knew I wanted to be in that space. So as that relates to self-love, it was a time when I knew you had to learn to love yourself, even despite the kinds of things that happen around you, like tragedy, even when the people that love you are no longer there. So even though I've always felt um, sad that my dad left too early, I feel like what was instilled in me was this importance that you always have to carry that within you. Because one of the things that I've realized in the ups and downs of my life is that there's one thing that we're guaranteed at the end of our life, and that's yourself. There's no other guarantee. Your life partner, your significant other, your parents, your children, your friends, there's not a guarantee that they're there. We want them to be there. We would love for all the people that we care about to be at the end with us. But the one person that we have to count on is us. So if you don't have that love for yourself, that's going to be a really long road of what could potentially be misery. And so I've had to, learn how to harness that and nurture that. And there's times when that has been more difficult. I've gone through divorce, I've gone through challenges like that, and sometimes the concept of self-love is tested, because we get love from so many other sources, but it's always foundational. And so that's something that I recognized early on, and I am such a huge advocate, um, for everyone, but in particular for women. And the reason I say that is because as nurturers, it is a natural part of who we are. We tend to put ourselves last, meaning You want to
Yeah.
serve and give and be there for everyone around you, for your community, for your family, for your friends. One of the other things I've suffered from in life is people pleasing. And
Mm.
I've had to learn how to manage that through a lot of different ways, reading books on boundaries and, different things like that. But, you know, I've learned that if you don't fill up your tank, you're unable to give the best version of yourself to others. And so sometimes when I talk to people about self love and it's something that they struggle with because they feel selfish by giving
Mm.
themselves time, I always like to emphasize that giving yourself the time to do a bubble bath, meditate, go get a massage, do a facial, do whatever that looks like for you. It's all in the spirit of making you the best you, because then you can be in better service to others. I think it's a different maybe way of thinking about it, but turning that concept of, oh, that's just being selfish, giving myself time, giving myself space and energy. You'll be surprised at the feeling of recharging yourself that you can get by giving yourself some time. And what's an hour, out of the 23 other hours that you're giving to everything else? Why couldn't you give yourself at least that, you know?
When did you start to discover that? Because I know the term is used all the time. And, how does one love themselves? Did you find that it was through how you were treating others and then just reflecting it back to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I knew from a young age that I was I am more comfortable giving than I am receiving. It's just a natural, tendency that I have. So the spirit of giving love was always there. I just had to figure out how to give it towards myself. And one of the ways that I learned to do that when at a young age was writing. In the
Mm.
adult world, we call it journaling. In the young world, we call it diary.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you had a diary and you talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
But the thing about that, and it's no different, right? But it is kind of like that, right? You transition into adulthood and you have to have some sophisticated word for it. I journal. I don't have a diary. It's a journal. Um, but it's a place where you can own your thoughts and your
Yeah.
emotions and your feelings, whether
Mm.
whether it's sadness or joy or whatever it is. But all of it is relevant, right? You can't have light without darkness. You have
Mm-hmm.
to have that balance of everything. And so even when I would write about things that were challenging or hurtful or sad, there's still beauty in that because you're learning. And part of self love is learning through the pain, through the trauma, you know? And it's usually in your lowest moments and your toughest moments that you learn about yourself and your ability to be resilient. Because when I was 9 and I thought about, okay, now I'm going to spend the rest of my life without a father, you know, there's always two ways that you can look at everything. You can either look at it in terms of lack, or you can look at it in terms of lessons and finding the beauty and the abundance. Because what it meant for me is that there would be other people that would be inspirations to me as men in my life. My brother-in-law, my uncles, cousins that were like older brothers. There's always a way that you can look at something and learn and grow from it, even though there's pain. And so that's all to me a part of the process, of learning to love everything about your life, even the bruises and the scrapes and the imperfections, because that's what makes it uniquely yours.
In in your life today, what is something that you continuously, so you journal
Mhm.
and you write in your diary or write
Right.
in your diary, and where are you finding for yourself like the patterns of growth for you?
Oh my gosh. I think one of the biggest habits that I've formed in recent times, and actually this was even before the pandemic, but I think exacerbated further because of the isolation that we've been in. Although I think we've been pretty resilient and adaptive, is listening to books and listening to podcasts. And it's been such a way to be able to immerse in stories because I find so much power in connection.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to both interview and learn people's stories, but also listen to, books and podcasts, because that, I think, is the fabric that holds us together. You know,
Yeah.
it's where we remind ourselves about humanity. If you look at the news, it's divisive. It's not talking about harmony and
Mm.
unity and the things that help us to learn and grow. But through the stories and through the positive channels of energy, that's where we can recognize that we have differences, actually find that there's a lot of learning in that, and realize there's actually we're probably have more commonalities than anything. And so that's one of the biggest ways that I find myself feeling like I can thrive, is through that medium.
I agree with hearing other people's stories and learning from them. I believe it's really important to allow one's voice. And as a fellow podcaster, you know the power of that. And somebody's stories is can heal somebody else's. You know, that ripple effect, that impact.
Mhm.
And it's healing. It's healing because you don't ever know. You'll never know who may be listening, who finds you, who shares, right? Whoever finds your episodes, or if that person's not going through that in that particular issue of some sort, whatever it is that we're talking about, they may know someone,
Mhm.
and so it just circulates and it's there forever.
Mhm. Yeah, I think one of the most common things that I see is people feeling one of two things: alone or not enough.
Mm.
When you feel like you're going through something and you're in the depths of despair, in isolation and loneliness, it's not a fun place to be. And if you feel like you are less than because of the environment you've been in, society, social media, anything that is making you feel like you are not sufficient as a human being, it's a challenging thing.
Mm.
So when you connect through the power of story, it's a great way to recognize that you're not alone. There are a lot of people who unfortunately have suffered in silence. And by
Mm-hmm.
having the courage to share, you grow that power, and you recognize that everything that you need is within you. And that's one of the most amazing things that I think we underestimate,
Mm.
is that for the amount of strife or tribulations that we experience, when you can sit still enough, the answers and the power to persevere is within us. You don't have to go anywhere for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's we have the resiliency, the intellect, the capacity, the capability to to persevere through a lot of things that, when we think about it, it's really a mind trick. It's our mind telling us that we can't, but you have to, push through that, recognizing that when you believe, you absolutely can.
I agree. Mindset is everything. And I want to hear a little bit more of you deep diving into your mindset and how you overcome certain transitions as a woman who is excited for change.
Mhm.
I think you're one of the few women I know who's like, I'm ready to just move through this. And I'm
Yeah.
so excited. And so before we continue, I'd love to just hear a little bit more. I'd love to just share some thanks for our sponsors for today. So just sit back, sis. We'll be right back. What's up, family? I am Anita Vita, Master Medical Qigong teacher and healer. I believe that nurses deserve to be nurtured as much as they give. As a high-performing woman myself, I coach women how to overcome chronic gut pain so that they have total freedom in their life through their practice of medical Qigong. In 2011, while working as a nurse in the post-anesthesia unit, I experienced severe burnout, and it expressed itself as IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. Discovering this practice allowed me to eradicate this gut disease completely and naturally through meditation alone. The slow, mindful movements of medical Qigong are potent and transformational, recalibrating your cellular structure by cultivating your body's natural energy and healing source called Qi. Today, I coach and empower women to achieve the same result through private and group programs, workshops, and retreat experiences to awaken you to your truth and be the highest version of yourself. If you're still in pain, you've tried everything, and you're sick and tired going from doctor to doctor with only prescriptions and strict diets as solutions, fear no more, my friend, because you have found me. Send me a message right now at anita@nacionvita.com and we'll get you to rise out of that pain, guaranteed.
𝙒𝙗 Management is a company dedicated to empowering individuals and businesses in entertainment, special events, talent management, content creation, digital and traditional marketing, and public relations, in working together to turn their dreams into reality. Get one step closer to elevating yourself and your business by contacting hello@𝙒𝙗management.com. Let us empower you.
Now let's get back to the show. So tell me a little bit about how you overcome those particular intense traumas or tragedy in your life when it came to your mindset. What were you going through? What were you thinking
Yeah.
in that moment so that you can actually break through to the other side?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I want to say about mindset is that it's everything. I mean, it is literally the thing that can make you or break you. And so I think the biggest thing, so anybody who's listening right now, think about a moment where you're going through something challenging. It could be in your career, it can be in a relationship, it could be any kind of relationship, a parent relationship, a child relationship, a partner, a friend, anything that's painful or challenging, right? And a common thing that I go to, because it was such a shock to my system, was when I had a divorce at 25 years old. I married my high school sweetheart. We met when we were 15. We were together for 10 years. And you don't anticipate, when you feel like you're living in a fairy tale, that the fairy tale is going to end. I don't know that anybody goes into marriage thinking of that. And so when you're first going through shock and loss, because it does kind of feel like a death. It is the loss of something. It's a loss of a relationship, or the transition of a relationship. Is that, first, what strikes you is all these questions of what's happening, because you're kind of in disarray. You are not sure, what's happening. And so you do have to go through a period of grief with anything that's challenging. And so the first thing that I would say is that it's important to go through that. You can't skip over that, because that's a natural feeling, and it's a part of the process of you understanding where you're at and how you're growing, right? But then there's a choice. And this is the part where we can take some different paths. And taking sometimes the the mindset of positivity when you're thinking about something like divorce is not always the most chosen path. You can um, get depressed and medicate or drink or forget and go think, so it's, to me, the first part of it is the processing, but then the second part of it is recognizing, what am I learning? And anytime you think about lessons and learning, there's beauty in that, because you can say, you know what? I'm taking ownership for things that I could have done better. And now I have the blessing of still being here and applying those lessons. And so mindset is about learning and then taking the lessons that you've learned and moving forward. The hard part is that many people don't deal with the trauma. And so what happens when you try to move past those emotions of grief and pain too quickly, and you jump right into something new, whether, a new relationship, and you haven't worked on those issues, they will manifest itself, and just, there will be triggers. Now, all of the things that you didn't work on will show up in your new relationship. And now you're repeating the things that you've already once done the first time around. And so mindset is about learning. It's about forward motion, and it's about saying, now, and I love this because this is a Maya Angelou quote. When you know better, you do better. And that's, and you have to. Another part of mindset is giving yourself grace. We are human beings. If we were meant to do everything perfect, we wouldn't be called human. We would be called a robot or some other form of something. But that is part of the process, is to be able to take those lessons and apply them forward. So, don't give yourself a hard time. Don't beat yourself up because something didn't go right in that business meeting or in that argument that you had with somebody that you love. You can't change the past. And that's one of the biggest things too, that anytime I'm coaching someone and working with them on mindset, and they're talking about something, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, what happened?" And they were like, "Well, that was 10 years ago." And I'm like, "You can't change what happened 10 years ago. You can't even change what happened 5 minutes ago." So at some point, you have to move on. And I think that is one of the biggest shifts that mentally people have to go through, is recognizing that you can't live in the past. You only have now. You only have this moment, and you only have how you can influence what happens tomorrow. And so that's like one of the biggest parts of mindset, is looking forward and not backward.
So, would you say present moment is key to moving forward? It's like staying present.
100%. And I think presence is something today I see more and more people struggle with, because distractions are imminent and pervasive in a way that is unprecedented, that we've not seen before. When I was growing up in the 80s, it was like, I know, right? Like, I just totally admitted that. Um, we didn't have the pervasiveness of social media and these things. If you wanted you went and you had a Game Boy, and you sat and played your Game Boy or your Mario Kart or something.
Yeah.
You had this dedicated time where you were going to distract yourself, but everything was a lot more easy to compartmentalize. When you were eating dinner, you were just eating dinner. You didn't have these cell phone distractions. And if
Yeah.
the house phone was, yes, we had house phones. Like, I know that's not really a thing anymore. But if it rang, you just let it ring. It
Yeah.
was a different time. Today, you know, there's every person has about 4 different devices at any given point that is distracting you from being present. In order for us to have this level of engagement on your podcast that's live right now,
Yeah.
is all the things to prepare for that. turning your phone on airplane mode, turning your
Mm-hmm.
other, I have more than one computer, I have more than one phone. So there's always several things that I have to be very intentional about. That's not going to take me away from this being in this present moment right now. But that's every 5 minutes, that's the world that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
And so presence is difficult, but that's a huge part of mindset,
Mm-hmm.
is being here to learn and to listen. Anybody that's tuning in, you're being attentive to your mindset because you wanted to, hear what me or Anita had to say today. So that's I applaud you if you're somebody that is able to be in this moment right now.
Yeah. And thank you for being here, because you could be doing something else on a Thursday night, right? And if you're on our drive and you listen to the replay, kudos to you, because you're right. It's important to learn. It's important to be present, because in that moment, when you do become still and you allow yourself to be, that's when you're really untouchable. Like, you have full control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're giving yourself fully. I used to, because one of the biggest things, one of the biggest questions that people ask me is, how can you do it all? How can you do consulting and coaching and have a podcast and be with your family and be with your friends? And, I've started some other businesses too. And it's the answer is because I'm present every time I'm doing any one of those things. So that dedicated 2 hours is for that purpose. I'm not trying to do 4 different things at once and then do none of them well. Whatever it is that you're devoting your time to, give it everything that you have. So when you have that 100% focus, you're going to give 100% energy. Those are your best ideas, your best thoughts, and same with the people that are with you. I hope that you expect their full presence too, because then you're only getting, 30% of their best ideas if they're over there, multitasking, doing other things. So I think it's an expectation that we should challenge ourselves and the people around us. If you're at a dinner and everybody's on their phone, you're not engaged with anybody that's at that dinner, well, then everybody could be doing something else instead of being at that dinner if you're not even going to talk to each other, you
Yeah.
know? So we have choices. And I think intentionality is
Yeah.
one of the most prominent things that I've liked to focus on, because with intention, you really can accomplish anything that you want.
So well said. Intentionality, doing things with intention. Because when you allow the energy to flow and you focus it towards something that matters to you, the process of how you went about it doesn't matter, because that's what's important to you, and you're not looking outside of yourself and seeing and comparing how other people are doing it. It's
Yeah,
for you. So
exactly.
I know that is definitely key, and something that I practice with how I'm doing everything. And I didn't even realize I was doing that. Like, it happened today. No one really asks me how I do it all. And I think my husband today got to see how I was able to have that capacity to do it. Number one, it's because I know it brings me joy, and that my why is greater than why. My why is great enough for me to continue going and continue to produce the way I produce. And you're right, it's the balance, it's the harmony in it, and having the this ebb and flow through the contrasting things that's happening in your life, and accepting that it's also a part of it,
Yeah.
because there's no one size fit all, right?
No, I mean, and that's why my motto with Born Unbreakable is to be unapologetically you, because there's only one you. The other thing that our society suffers from is comparison. And social media is just a cesspool of
Yeah.
that. Is, oh my gosh, Look at the likes that this person got. Look at the thing that this person purchased. I mean, you
Yeah.
could just go on and on. There's a lot of
Mm.
materialistic comparisons, physical comparisons, and before you know it, you were trying to go on there for motivation, and then you walked away defeated because now you feel like everyone else is doing all these things better than you, and you're upset.
Yeah.
So I think that whole thing is, first of all, going back to mindset. When you see people succeeding, be happy for that,
Mm-hmm.
be inspired by that, be encouraged by that. Look at it in that way. If you're going to see somebody's success or an achievement, and then the next thing is, the only person that you should be comparing yourself to is yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you being better than you were yesterday. you know if there was something that you were trying to achieve, because in the gym you kind of called it quits and you didn't go the extra distance, so you skipped a set and you ran 20 minutes instead of the 30 minutes that was your goal, or whatever it was, right? It's like, just be better than that. Try 25 and then work your way up to 30. you know get to that 10th push up and then you'll get to 20. I mean, that's
Yeah.
who you're competing against. It's you, and becoming
Mm-hmm.
the better version of you. And once you do that, you won't be worried about what other people are doing, because I guarantee that people are not really worried about what you're doing. So
Right.
you shouldn't be so worried about what other people are doing. It's about your fulfillment, and your fulfillment comes from you. It shouldn't come from, all these externalities that you can't control anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control them,
Yeah.
but you can control this. You can control what you consume, whether that's positive or that's negative. You control what you put into your body. You control you have control over so much more than you think you do, that you actually can curate the life that you want just by what you do and don't allow into your
Mm-hmm.
space. So just as much as you're saying yes, is you have to also have the list of things that you say no to, because that's an important thing that's going to keep you true north with the things that you want to achieve in your life. Because there's always going to be things
Yeah.
that are not in alignment with who you are and who you want to be. So you have to recognize that and be willing to say no to those things, so you can stay in alignment with that energy that makes you the best version of you.
Mm-hmm. So for somebody who is, listening in right now, who wants to get better at their mindset, what would you say is one tool that they can use and start today and apply?
Yeah. One of the things, and it's so interesting because I'm saying this thinking about the interview that you and I had together, because I would not have said this years ago.
Hmm.
Um, but this is part of my being vulnerable and talking about my journey, um, is meditation. I used to think that meditation was like, I didn't even get why people did that. So you're gonna be quiet with yourself. It's like, why would you do that? Why though? Like, you could be eating or doing something else. Like, why would you be quiet with yourself? And then I remember feeling so overwhelmed, so
Hmm.
overworked, so stressed out, all the things that you deal with in the business that you're helping people to heal. And I was like, what else can I do? Because I was the person that would just use exercise as an
Hmm.
outlet, which I think is a very healthy outlet. I still believe that today. But I was never going to stillness,
Hmm.
because I thought that stillness meant lack of productivity. And
Hmm.
was a person that had to be doing something, because when you're doing something, that means you're accomplishing something. When you're accomplishing something, you're getting a goal. And when you get a goal, then you get success and you get money and you do the things. And then people are proud of you. Then you get the feedback and you get the compliments. I mean, it was like just a whole thing, like, blah,
What a formula.
Right. But then you also get no sleep. You feel like crap. I mean, there's so many
Hmm.
detrimental things.
Yeah.
So, going back to your question about
Hmm.
mindset, meditation, the cool part about it was that you don't actually have to do it for an hour, or because
Mm-hmm.
that was the other thing I was mistaken as well. It's like, well, I don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who does that? I don't have time for that. I learned that even 5 minutes, just a few minutes of getting centered, breathing, reflecting, pausing made such a difference in influencing the clarity that I needed to do the next thing, which is your mind. That's your mind. You're controlling your mind by giving it a moment to breathe. So the thing that you actually need to do that's going to make you feel good is able to rise to the surface. And I didn't, that was a really big epiphany for me, because I had just so many misconceptions about what meditation actually was until I gave it a try, and I did the drip feed approach of just little by little.
Mm-hmm.
And then I explored, like, oh, okay, there's apps for that. It actually can give you prompts of things that you can think about to calm you and keep you still. And I didn't realize that there were levels, and there were incremental ways that you can get exposed to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if there's anybody who's listening who thinks it's like a woo woo, you know, weird thing that people do, I would encourage you to give it a try in a incremental format, to see how it actually can influence your mindset in a positive way, to bring you clarity and peace even.
Mm-hmm. I can feel, as you were sharing that, it took me back to my experience when I first started too. And then who knew I would be a meditation teacher today? If anybody
Mhm.
was woo woo about all this stuff, it was totally me. So I'm glad that you added in the aspects of meditation that this is what's cool about it. Because nobody really
Mm.
shared that.
No.
And it's because it's not tangible, right? If you do X, Y, Z, this is the result. Because we're very results driven, and
Mhm.
as a doer as well. And if you're doers out there, you came to the right place. So we have to balance that with the stillness, and it's
Mhm.
natural. So when you feel like you're breaking down, it's because you're breaking through,
Yes.
right? And listening to that soft, still whisper of your voice when you're willing. It's always talking.
It's there.
It's always talking, and
It
it's
is
really like soft whisper.
always
And when you
there.
really are still and you allow it, all of a sudden you wonder, like, why didn't I just do that?
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy too. Again, just a few minutes, you feel lighter.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the biggest surprises. I was like, wow, you like actually feel lighter, and I can go on to the next thing with a different energy of
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, this is exactly what I needed. Can focus on this and give it the enthusiasm that it deserves. When you're
Mm-hmm.
in a space like mine where I'm I am constantly motivating others, you have to have those moments of centering yourself so you can show up with that enthusiasm, because nobody wants a angry motivator person just coming in and giving them that bad juju. Like, no,
Right.
this isn't good.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to know, how can we support you and where can we connect with you?
Yeah, so you absolutely can do that by going to Born Unbreakable, my podcast. That's the biggest way that you could support me, is tuning in and listening to the awesome things that my guests have to share. You could find the podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, just anywhere, YouTube. Um, and then my handles on everything are pretty much Born Unbreakable. So if you go to, that's the title of my website, bornunbreakable.com. And you should probably go there. And then there's links to all my other social medias. like Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram, where I share clips of the episodes that come out and other inspirational content. So that would be the first recommendation that I have. But yeah, follow the podcast.
Sounds good, sis. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting with you, to seeing what we can do together to collab, and I'll definitely be bringing you back on.
Thank you so much, Anita. This has been so much fun.
You're most welcome. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for being here. I hope you received all the gems and wisdom from Des. I know I have, and I really appreciate that she's able to impart her story, her tools, and her wisdom, because we all know that that's priceless when we go through these traumas in our life and the soul searching to the work that we do, and now we're at a capacity and level to serve. That's what really lights me up, and I know that lights her up too. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and as always, if this episode has brought you some value, please, share it with somebody that you know and care and love. And as always, you can find me at all of my platforms to like, to subscribe, and to tune in. As always, you guys, I root for your rise. See you next week.
Anita Vita rise. Anita Vita rise, yeah. Anita Vita rise, yeah. Anita Vita rise.